Okay, welcome to our University of Idaho's Outdoor Program Rental Center Ski Tuning Clinic. We're holding it virtual this year. Historically, we have had people going into the rental center to work on their skis and snowboards, but the pandemic's actually given us this unique opportunity to invite people to be able to see the process, and we will have this recorded, and so it will be online for you to reference back again. My name is Sandra Townsend. I'm the assistant director for the outdoor program. I run the rental center and part of the TRIPS program. I've been a ski tech for going on 10 years now. I used to work at a mountain over in Vermont, Killington, a shop called Peak Performance, and then I moved west and started working over at a shop in Steamboat Springs in Colorado called Ski House, where I learned a lot of my trade. And then I've been working as kind of the head ski technician here at the University of Idaho going on for 5 years. And I'll let Brock introduce himself.
Alrighty, so my name is Brock. I'm one of the student trip leaders here at the University of Idaho Outdoor Program. I have been involved in the professional side of winter recreation, just kind of in general for the last 5 years or so. Started back when I was in high school guiding a little bit and have been building my skill set since then. So yeah, have been around the ski community a lot and have put a lot of time into keeping boards and skis ready to rock and roll for the winter.
So how we're going to do this webinar, Brock here is in control of all the slides. So we might be doing a little bit of looking back at each other just to make sure we're kind of on the same slide and everything. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll answer to the best of our ability. But today we're going to be covering why you want your skis tuned, how to tune them. We are going to go over mostly edging and waxing, which we kind of consider the most important fundamentals of tuning. So we're not going to go into complex, how to fix a broken edge or big core shots or anything like that. We just don't have the time or the resources to go over that here. But this is a great introduction to that. And then we'll kind of shamelessly plug some of the things that we do at the shop. So Brock, take it away.
Alrighty, so as I figure out why this is not letting me progress forward, oh, there it is, cool, there we go. Yeah, so why do we tune skis is a really general question that kind of should and will hopefully be answered by the end of this. But mainly for at least my own personal ski tuning, it makes you go a lot faster, but that's a lot of times what prevents people from spending time and spending money tuning their skis because they're afraid that they're going to go too fast and lose control, which that actually isn't entirely true. There's a lot of different things that ski tuning actually benefits in making you not only a better skier, but also it's nicer to your skis. So first off, it increases the longevity of your skis. It fills in the base coat or the base layer of your skis, allowing them to be softer and more supple for longer and last longer in general, just by kind of refreshing the wax. You can see in the two skis on the screen right here, the one on the left is kind of ashy and scraped up, and that one hasn't been waxed yet, whereas the ski on the right has just had a fresh tune and fresh wax on it. And you can just visibly see how much nicer and how much better the condition that ski is. And that's simply tuning the ski that changes that. Along with increasing longevity, it also improves responsiveness and handling. So you can, with smooth, fast running skis, you'll have smoother edge to edge transitions because you won't have sticky spots or drag or anything like that when you're going back and forth. And it also gives you sharper edges, which allows you to initiate turns easier without fighting the slide of your skis as much. Your edges lock into the turn rather than scraping along the ice or something like that. And finally, it also sets a consistent standard for your skis. So as long as you keep your skis or snowboard refreshed and tuned well, it's going to have similar behaviors in different snow conditions every time you ride it. Whereas if you tune your skis once at the beginning of the year, and then by the end of the year, you're going to have a completely different set of skis simply because they're not as fast, they're not as sharp, they're not responding consistently. So just to improve in your skiing as a whole, it's good to have a tuned set of skis just so you can kind of learn the personality of your ski and learn how to react to what's coming and just anticipate things a little bit better. There we go. So I'm going to let Sandra here talk a little bit about edges, specifically angles and things like that, of which to sharpen your edges. If we look over here at the next slide, here are some of the tools that you'll use to edge things. Let's see here if I can. Oh, here we go. I've got a laser pointer. Sweet. So these are different sharpening stones that we use here at the outdoor program. This here is essentially a jig for these sharpening stones that sets the correct angle, which Sandra will touch on here in a second, which is kind of what's over here. And this is just another kind of generic edge sharpening tool that you can use. These are more what people have like in their personal home that they use, rather than having a full-blown setup with multiple jigs with multiple angles and things like that. But Sandra, if you want to touch on different angles, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so thanks, Brock. So this is something I'm particularly passionate about, I'll be perfectly honest. When it comes to tuning, we always do it in a certain progression. You never wax before you edge. You never PTEX after waxing or anything like that. So you always are going to do any sort of epoxy work that you need to do first. And depending if you've got a blown edge, if you have top sheet that's coming off, anything like that, you always want to deal with that first. Then you want to deal with any base work that you have to do, being PTEX, core shots, anything like that, repairing that base. And then you're going to ignore the base and go to the edges. And the edges are, as you can kind of see on the slide right here, it'll say metal edge, kind of with that little squiggly arrow right there. That's, imagine that they just cut your favorite pair of skis in half right there. And you're kind of looking down at what it's, what the inside of your ski looks like. There's always a top sheet that's on the top there. There's going to be lots of different laminate layers that are in the middle of the ski. And then you're going to have your actual base. This doesn't show it, but the edge is actually kept into the base with some teeth, and it's kind of smushed in between those teeth. If you notice that your edge seems to be coming away, that's because the teeth are no longer properly epoxied into there, and that's something that we can fix. That is fixable most of the time, not always. But with edge angles, that is something that you can work on at home. Definitely using those diamond stones, which Brock had the laser pointer on, those yellow, red, and black kind of things over there. Those are great for what we call deburring edges. So every time you go out, as you're skiing, snow is actually quite aggressive. If you've ever been hit by a snowball, sometimes it's fluffy, sometimes it's hard. And that's doing the same thing to your edges and to your base. When it comes to the edges, you want to make sure that you're getting rid of those little burrs that collect up during the day, coming from snow, rocks, trees, brush. If you are a park rat, anything that comes from the rails or the stairs or anything like that, that's going to do damage to that metal edge. To keep your metal edge to last for as long as possible, you want to make sure that you're getting a nice even edge again as much as possible. If you are going out every day, we do recommend, if you do get a diamond stone, just run it up and down those edges really quick, and it gets rid of those little burrs, and you will notice that your edge will stay sharper for longer. However, if you don't get a diamond stone, you're like, hey, I need to do some work a couple times a year, something like that. What you can get is what's called a bastard file, which is that file that's just above and to the left of those diamond stones. So that's more aggressive, and that will actually set the new edge onto your metal edge there. Unlike the diamond stones, which just deburr, that file will actually take off a lot of material and reset that angle, which is kind of shown in these graphs right here. So we always do side edges first, and you'll know what edge you want to have depending on the ski and your skier type. It really depends on the ski brand. Like generally, we would say most atomics are going to be at 2 degrees. Sometimes they're 1 degree. A lot of Rosignol's are all 1 degree. DPSs are always 2 degrees. It really depends on the brand and the style. GS skis can go anywhere from 3 degrees to, if your name's Michaela Schifrin, I'm guessing you're doing like a 7 degree because you're an Olympic skier. So it very much depends on what you're planning on doing with your edges. But you always start with the side edge. Generally, folks are at a 1, 2, or 3. And you can set that by that little file guide that was up there that Brock was kind of pointing to right there. And generally, they're either called 1, 2, or 3, or ours are called 89, 88, 87, just kind of working back from that 90 degree. So you do your side edge back and forth, and we'll have video later that we're going to show. And then you do your base edge. That's generally anywhere from 0 to 1. I know on here, I shamelessly stole these graphics. It's usually either 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, or 1. It's really rare that you get above 1 degree. If you go up to 2 degree, that's generally a very beginner ski. The less you have the base degree and the more exaggerated your side angle is, like if you're rocking a 7-degree side and a 0-degree base, that's a really aggressive angle, and it's going to be very sharp. If you're a more beginner-friendly ski that you're looking for, generally you're looking at a 1-degree base and like a 1-degree side edge, and that's going to have a lot gentler of a transition edge. And that's what the edges do, is they help you get on side, either really aggressively, again, if you're Michaela Schifrin, or if you're a beginner skier, your name's Sally, you're 7 years old, you're terrified of skiing, and you just really want a nice, easy transition back and forth, having a 1 and 1 degree will help with that. So the edges aren't just meant to be sharp, they're actually meant to help you make those transitions easier if you want those to be really fast or just smooth and gentle and easy. And these are some of the tools here to help you do that. Pricing kind of varies on the different types of tools. Those Swix file guides generally run anywhere between $20 to $40 each. Bastard file you can get at your local hardware store. Those clamps, honestly, you could probably use any clamps. They probably cost like $4 or $5 each. Those file guides are definitely a specialty item. You can find those online. Again, they're probably like $20 to $30 each, and you want to find what you've got. And then those file guides that are on the bottom, you can actually change the degree. There are some that work both side and base, but generally it's either one or the other. And those will cost around $30 to $40, something like that.
All righty. So with that, we'll kind of jump over here to a little video, just kind of showing Sandra go file down the edges that on a set of skis that we tuned earlier today. So let me do a little shuffling here, and I will.
I was the shameless model for all of these videos, so
yes,
please be gentle.
Yeah. Cool. All good again.
And again, if folks have any questions, please head over to the chat, type them in, and we'll answer them as we go. You can do it now, or we can save things to the end. Totally up to you.
Okay, take 2. There we are. Sweet. So just kind of look at edges and how we're going through things. To start off with, Sandra used the heaviest grit of the files to take down the biggest burrs, obviously, just like sanding anything that you typically would do. You want to start with the biggest grit and then go finer and finer. Notice she also flipped. This is the opposite edge that she was filing back here before. So just remember to get both sides, not just one. And this is what it looks like using that file guide to run down the edges of the skis.
You might also notice that the brakes are up. You have rubber bands that will use the brakes up and out of the way while you're both edging and
I'm completely muted, sorry.
Yes.
So you might have noticed there are rubber bands that are holding up the brakes for your bindings. So you don't have to take your bindings off when you're tuning, and that'll just make it easier while you're edging and waxing.
Also, Sandra, there's a question.
How to become a certified ski tech? That's a great question. So you have to work for a ski shop that is indemnified with a ski company, which that means that that company has a contract with one of the larger ski binding companies. Ski tech technically refers to more of adjusting and testing and mounting bindings. Anyone can tune skis. You don't have to have a certification with that. It is more of an apprenticeship style. So I like to think that we run an apprenticeship kind of style program here, where if folks work for me for 2 seasons, I feel comfortable giving them a recommendation of working at any ski tech business shop in the country. But it does take a lot of time to get that experience, just because every ski is a little different, every binding is a little different. If folks want to work with bindings, mounting them, that kind of stuff, you do have to work with a company that has an agreement with those different binding companies. We are indemnified with Solomon, Look, and Armada, also Look Rosignol, and then also marker. We don't have agreements with Tyrolia or any other binding company. So anyone who works in the ski shop here can work on those kind of bindings. I hope that helped.
All right. Unmute. All right. So now that you've got your edges done and ready to rock and roll, we're going to move on to waxing here. The typically more arduous part of ski tuning, just because there's a few more steps overall. So to start off with, there's a lot of different types of wax that you can use. You can see there's a couple different scales here. So we'll touch on why those are different here in a moment. But the biggest thing you need to pick is the wax that is most suitable for your condition that you're going to be skiing in. So in places more like Utah and Colorado that typically have colder, drier snow and colder, drier temperatures, they're going to head more towards these green or blue wax temperatures, whereas us on the West Coast and a little bit in the inland Northwest as well, we have a typically wetter, heavier snowpack that also changes throughout the season. So here you see that it says spring wax. So that would be, if you're out going in April to go get your late season turns or something like that. And then these others are all just variations within that. So you can see here, every wax will have a temperature rating. So this one is rated from 18 degrees Fahrenheit to looks like 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's the ideal temperature that you'll want to use that wax in. There are universal waxes as well, but typically they are still graduated in some way, shape, or form. And again, SWIC specifically color codes them. So the color of the wax relates to the color or to the temperature that it's used in. And for the most part, ski companies track the same along those lines with the colors. But again, just be aware of the actual temperature rating because sometimes that can vary from company to company. So you can use whichever chart or whatever the label is on the wax that you're purchasing before you get started to determine which is going to be the best suited for you. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on that with that, Sandra, actually?
Yeah, you can go back real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, another thing that I'm very passionate about is waxing. All the things that you learn, a lot of folks are like, hey, I only have so much time, I only have so much money. What should I do? You should wax your skis. Don't even worry about the edges, anything like that. Waxing is what's gonna be, I like to call it the deep hair conditioner for your skis. It's what's actually gonna really add and extend the life of your bases. Once your bases are shot, the rest of the ski is shot. So that's where you should put your time and effort in for sure. And thankfully, it's one of the cheaper things to do. It's also probably one of the more Zen-like things that you can do for sure. And everyone always has a special ritual when it comes to waxing. It is sometimes a little tricky, especially if you go into a big ski shop. They will have an entire wall just full of waxes. And it's really overwhelming if you don't know what you're looking for. The first thing I advise is ignore all of those and go straight to the salesperson and go like, what wax do I need for this condition where I am? Don't use for waxes for somewhere out east, like use waxes for where you're going to be skiing the most during the season. If you're always skiing up at Lookout, look and see where the normal temperature range is for when you usually go up there and purchase waxes for that. There's no reason to use waxes or buy waxes for conditions that you're never going to have. I personally have never used green because I see the temperatures and they're negative 10 Celsius. I'm inside drinking hot cocoa. I am not outside skiing in those temperature conditions. Like that's just not going to happen for me. So I just never use green wax. When it comes to the waxes, there is different things when it comes to nomenclature. Swix definitely has the largest amount of wax selection of any brand. So that's kind of where the rest of the industry will follow. You'll notice 10 is yellow. All those numbers there will correspond to an iron that Swix puts out. They'll have this little dial. So it's nice to know the different numbers and colors. So if you have, and they'll do this also on, you'll see that Swix LF7 right there. So LF means low fluoro. Fluoros are fluorinated waxes, which will be banned for FIS skiing starting next year. which is pretty cool. Fluoros do have a really negative environmental impact. So I think Swix is slowly phasing those out. And you'll notice most waxes won't have fluoros anymore, but that's what ELF stands for. And then 7, if you go over, you'll see 7 stands for that purple that's there. And that number also corresponds to the temperature that you want to be melting that wax at, which they'll have on that box also. It'll say 140 centigrade, something like that. So you want to make sure that when you are melting your waxes, that you're not melting them too cold, that you're using like 100 degrees Celsius, mainly because you're not melting the wax. The harder, the colder those temperature waxes are, the harder that wax is. So the higher of a temperature that it needs in order to melt appropriately. However, if you go too high, and for that LF7, you're using 160 centigrade in order to melt it, you're actually changing the chemical composition of that wax. You're burning that wax. So it's going to act differently than it should have had it been melted at 140. So it is important to have that proper iron. I strongly encourage you not to use your like grandma's old clothing iron. Please, please, please invest in something that will actually have the proper temperature, because you're going to see a really bigger amount of income, like that outcome for actually using that correct temperature when it comes to melting those waxes. Generally in this area, people are like, okay, Sandra, stop talking about colors and numbers. What wax should I get? Generally, we're looking at kind of the blues and the purple kind of range. And honestly, we use purple pearl here, just because you'll notice down there, like that covers a huge temperature range. So thankfully that's a temperature range that we have here a lot, like 4 degrees Fahrenheit to almost like 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That covers pretty much the Palouse right there. We don't really have those really, really Arctic colds that often out here, like they do in Colorado. And if we do, again, I'm inside drinking hot cocoa. And then when it comes to those really warm spring waxes, by the time we're getting up to those degrees, generally folks aren't really skiing when it's like 40 degrees out, that kind of stuff. By the time it gets 32, 34, 36, down here, snow is probably about to leave. So those tend to be more for at the resort while they're still using their groomers to get the last amount of life that they can out of that spring snow for that like month of April and May. Or you're going out and you're doing ski mountaineering, in which case I do strongly recommend kind of getting a yellow and then also graphite, which is a black wax that you would see, just to kind of help that wax stay in and repel any contaminants that are there.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on the not using your grandma's old iron, that's how I started waxing skis and things like that. And it works okay until you remember that you have to iron your clothes later and there's still wax on the iron. It's a really good way to wax your t-shirt or your dress shirt or whatever it happens to be. So it's just a lot simpler to keep your iron separate overall.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've got a question here. So the 140 centimeter on the picture refers to the temperature that, yes, it does. Yep, so that would be to the actual temperature on the iron.
Sweet.
Awesome. So equipment and how to wax. Folks are always asking, what equipment do I actually need? First thing, that iron that I was talking about. There are quite a few that are on the market. The biggest reason why there's a difference in temperature ranges is that metal plate that's there that the laser pointer is kind of close to. The more expensive the iron, generally the thicker that heat sink of that plate's going to be, and it's just going to have a more consistent heating element that's in there. There's absolutely no reason to spend like $400 on that iron. There are plenty of irons that are in there kind of between like the 50 to 150 range that work just great. That'll have the dial and everything. One thing to note with most ski irons, they don't have an on-off switch. So when you plug it in, it's on, and you got to unplug it, turn it off. Definitely don't burn down your house because you forgot your iron was plugged in. I would really hate for that to happen. So just be aware of that situation. I do like to scrape any residual wax that's on the iron. Wax will stay on the iron a little bit. So you'll see later in the video, I use a Scotch-Brite pad just to kind of take that all off and rub that off. And then you want the wax. Again, there's plenty to choose from. If you're not sure what kind of wax you need, feel free to like bring your stuff in. I love geeking out over ski equipment. So go in, go like, hey, which wax should I have for this situation? Then you'll want a scraper. They do come in different thicknesses. It's totally dependent on what preference you have. I believe it's 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 5 millimeter. I personally like just straight down the middle, the 4 mil, gives a nice flex that you're looking for. Big thing with these is you want to make sure that you sharpen them. You want a nice sharp edge to scrape all the wax off. Thankfully, it's plastic, so it's not going to like leave a big groove. But you do want to be careful with the corners of the plexiglass that you're not like really scraping in heavily into those. And then after you scraped everything off, brushes. Of all of those brushes that you see there, the one I would spend my money on is the one on the right there that he's pointing to. That's going to be the roughest one, and that'll take the most material off. And it's kind of got that nylon around the edge there, kind of add a nice smoothening there. If you do want to buy a whole set, that's kind of the most aggressive. It's got a little bit of metal in it. Then that white one is just these nylon bristles. It's a good medium brush, all around brush. And then the one that you can't really see the bottom of is this delightful, like really smooth blue brush that leaves that really shiny layer on there. It just kind of buffs it all out. So if you want that really, really nice, shiny, kind of hair conditioned base, like at the beginning of the presentation, that brush also would kind of help with that.
Alrighty, so now that we've kind of covered the basics there, I'm going to pull up my little video here, and we will. Alrighty, here we go. So starting off again, like how Sandra had mentioned, we're going to scrape off all the old wax. This just provides you with a fresh start, essentially. Sometimes if there's like grooves in the wax or something like that from running over a tree branch or whatever it happens to be, this just cleans that out and sets a good baseline for the beginning. Next, you're going to set your temperature, much like how Sandra talked about with, you can see the different numbers. There's a 4, a 6, 7, 8, as well as the Celsius degrees on the outside. This is, as she mentioned, cleaning it with the Brillo pad, getting the excess wax off of the iron itself, not just off of the ski. And then she wiped it off on a rag to clean things up a little better. Next, from there, you're going to drip your wax onto your ski, just kind of get a good amount that you can spread an even coat over the ski momentarily. Next, you're going to you're actually ironing the wax into the ski. So a big part of this, and I'll pause it if I run out of time in this video section, but a big part of this is actually the bottom sheet of your ski is porous. And so what the heat is doing is it's actually expanding all those holes, all of those essentially, well, they're porous, they're porous, I guess. But you can look right here, how it's all glossy in this section right behind the iron. That is not only the wax being melted, but also the base sheet is expanding those pores and absorbing the wax into the base, which is the main point of why your bases last longer when you wax, is because you're actually adding more to the base. You're adding more material into the base to help prevent damages.
And that's also why there's definitely those rub-on waxes. Swix sells an F4, and there's definitely lots of other companies. And those rub-on waxes will work, but they'll work for 1, maybe 2 runs. And that's because they're just not sinking into that base material. Whereas if you have hot wax, yeah, you're just like Brock was saying, those pores open up, that wax is actually going to melt in there. And then it'll slowly kind of release out as you're using that ski. As that abrasion's happening, and it's kind of protecting your ski, as opposed to like 1 run. It can last up to like almost a month or 2.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll finish out ironing our wax into our base sheet, and then from there you move on to scraping. And this is of course after the wax cools. You don't want to get right after it after you finished waxing, because you'll just smear the still warm wax all over the bottom of your ski. Just doesn't work all that well. But once they're cooled, you can scrape off all the excess wax. Always scrape from the tip of the ski to the tail of the ski, as you can see Sandra doing there. And now she's cleaning up her edges in case there was any drip or pour over that went onto the edge of the skis that covered her freshly sharpened edges that she just worked on earlier. So just kind of cleaning up those little dribbly bits, making sure that everything is all good to go. And once she finishes this up, she'll move on to brushing just to get that final polish on the wax. So this is her heaviest brush that she mentioned before, with the darker interior and then the blue around the rim of the brush. So this is and she did 2 more brushes after that. But you can see, like before, the one on the right here, I'll back it up a teeny bit here once I can.
And you'll
Shuffle
see
things
also,
around.
I was not being like outrageously gentle with the brushing. You can go pretty aggressive with the brushing. You want to take all of the possible wax that you can that's left over out. That's wax that's not in the ski. All it's doing is sitting on the top of the base, and it's doing nothing. In fact, it's probably slowing you down. So you want to take as much of that out, also so that you can see the pattern that's actually the texture that's in the base material. A lot of people don't realize this, but base material comes out completely smooth when it comes out of the factory, and they'll put in these little grooves that are in the base, which actually helps prevent suction. So you want to make sure that those grooves are exposed to the snow so you can have a better responsive ski like we were talking about beforehand. So don't worry about like leaving extra wax for the future. Wax doesn't work that way. You want to get rid of all of it that's not actually in the ski.
Yep. And any other extra wax would just be sticky and frustrating to begin with, and then just rub off by your second or third run. So this is just cutting off those sticky, slow, annoying runs at the beginning of the day. But you can see here on the left ski versus the right ski, we had this photo earlier before as well, but you can see how shiny and smooth. And if you look up towards the tip of the ski, you can also see the factory set grooves. You can see them a little bit towards the tip of the right ski, but on the left ski, it's all kind of ashy, like we had mentioned before, and is just not a fast or healthy ski, as you would say, I guess, at this point. Let's see here. Yes, I know I'm screen sharing. New share. Sweet.
Shameless plug here. So that
Yes.
was the quick and dirty version of how to tune your own gear. So if you're looking for like, hey, Sandra, I'm going shopping. I need to make a Christmas list here for holiday shopping of what I want in my stocking stuffer. What should I get? I would suggest an iron. I would suggest appropriate wax. I wouldn't get more than 1 or 2 of what you're looking for. A scraper, a general brush, and then a diamond stone. You don't even need like a file guide or anything like that. You're just going to quickly run that up and down the edges just to deburrow. And that will do a lot to extend the longevity of your ski. And then if you, at the end of your season, if you know when the end of your season is, where you're like, this is my last day of skiing for the season, put on a layer of wax and then don't scrape it. Do what we call a summer wax and just let it sink in all summer long. And that's that really deep hair conditioner that we're talking about. And then when you get them out again in like October, November, scrape that and brush that, and then you're good to go. So that's one of the better things that you can do for your skis. And it helps protect your skis from any random stuff that's happening in your shed or wherever you keep your skis. Just kind of adds that extra layer of protection. But shameless plug here, if you watch this whole webinar and you're like, I don't have space to do this, I don't want to deal with wax getting on my kitchen floor or wherever I scrape my skis or anything like that, we do offer a full tune shop here at the University of Idaho's outdoor program. We'll do everything from base work, core shot, we'll do some edge work. We can adjust and test your bindings, which we do recommend doing at least once a year if you have a DIN certified binding. So alpine skis, generally for alpine touring, you don't have to, there is no adjust and test for most of those bindings, but we can definitely take a look at them for you. Same with telemark skis, generally they don't have an adjust and test per se, but we can look and see to make sure that everything is still holding up, making sure if you have any shipped screws when it comes to your bindings, we can fix those with some epoxy work. Or if you're just noticing any other kind of like weird damage that's happening, top sheets coming up, anything like that, custom work, we can definitely do a lot of that. But if you're just looking for a general tune, wax is $13, edge and wax, which we went over today, is $25. And then a full tune is going to be some base work, a little bit of P-Tex work, putting your ski over the grinder, just getting that base nice and flat. and then edge and wax. And that service for the whole month of November is going to be half off for November. So make sure to get your skis in soon. We are going to close all next week. So make sure to get them in now if you want to have them picked up by Friday, so today or tomorrow. And that will also extend for, I think November 30th is the Monday after next, and we'll honor it for that also. And then do we mount demo bindings? Very much depends on the binding. So to mount bindings, we will have jigs. I would bring in your bindings and see if I do have the correct jig for it. I can mount most Look Rossignol bindings just across the board, except for juniors. Marker, I can mount about half of those, and same with Atomic Solomon. I can mount about half of them because I have about half the jigs. I can't do any Tyrolia. I don't have any of their jigs. Generally, I can do most Dynafit, G3, that kind of stuff. So come on in with your bindings and skis. I can do Z12. Yes, Jordan, I can do those. So bring those in, and I'll double check and make sure I have the correct hole pattern for the demos, but I should definitely be able to do those. Thanks for asking. Does anyone else have any questions or anything like that? Or Brocky, incredible last words.
I mean, we didn't mention all that much, but this same technique applies to snowboards as well as skis. Typically the edges of your, like the edge angles are going to be more of a 1 degree and not really venturing too much farther off than that. But yeah, anything that we went over here with a ski, you can 100% do on a snowboard too. It just has a little bit more surface area you got to cover with your wax. So just be aware with how much you need per set of gear.
And like we said earlier, me and Brock and all the folks that are here, most of us, we ski and we snowboard. We love talking about it. I will talk for hours about ski tuning and where I love to go skiing. It's our job. So please use us as the resources that we are. Even if you're not going to be coming in and dropping off your skis for a full tune, like just come in going like, hey, Sandra, like, what degree edge is this? Can you mount these bindings? What skis do you think I should buy? I love having those kind of conversations, and we're here for you. So please use this resource that you've already paid for, just to make sure that you're getting as much as you can out of us. Awesome. Any other questions, comments? We will be here. I'll definitely be here tomorrow and Friday also, if you want to come in and get anything done before Thanksgiving break. Sweet. Well, folks, thanks for coming. I hope you learned some things. I hope we didn't scare anyone off. And again, come in, and we're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 6. Brock's having unmuting problems.
There we go. Got it. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. We got one more thing in the chat, looks like. Oh, never mind. Cool. You're welcome, Jordan. Happy to help. Stop by anytime. Yeah, and for any of the snowboarders out there, there are, despite Sandra's aversion to us knuckle draggers, there are some of us that do hang out around the OP. They're happy to answer questions about stuff like that. I know I'm not the only one. Off the top of my head, I know we have at least one more, right? Maybe, I don't know, but we're always happy to help. So feel free.
We've got
to
a
stop
couple
by.
snowboarders for sure.
Don't let the 2 plankers scare you away.
Yeah. Bye.